Everybody, welcome to Springfield. I'm Mayor Alex Kaiser. I thank you for participating on this early morning today. Today's Union-Springfield March for Our Lives is is one of 10 events being held across our state this weekend, and one of 500 events across our cities, across our nation, that coincides with the National March for Our Lives event being held later today in Washington, D.C. This morning, I am joined by some very strong local leaders, from Congressman Tom Malinowski, Senator Joe Cryan, Union County Commissioner Kolowski, my partner Mayor in Union, Mayor Manning, his wonderful township committee, my township committee members, my amazing superintendent Rachel Goldberg, Union Township's amazing superintendent Scott Taylor, and of course, some unbelievable youth leaders, 3 of which are from Springfield that you'll hear from momentarily. My old stomping ground, but they are all smarter and more passionate than me, Natalia, Morgan, and Ben. So thank you for all being with us today. Before getting started, a huge thank you to our both towns' DPWs, police, fire, EMS, OEM, who made today's rally possible. So thank you. Thank you for being with us on a Saturday. So why are we here? We're here today to rally and demand common sense gun control measures in the aftermath of 2 tragedies. One in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 students and 2 teachers were killed. A week prior, Buffalo, New York, where a young gunman, fueled by racism and hate, took the lives of 10 individuals at a supermarket. A few weeks ago, we stood on this very lawn to grieve for those victims. I said that night was for the victims to remember and send uplifting messages to those shattered communities. But how about the other victims? Since Uvalde, which was a few weeks ago, there has been 41 mass shootings. 41. And may I remind you that a mass shooting is where 4 or more victims are either injured or killed by a gun. A mass shooting. So 41 since Uvalde in the 3-week span in this nation. March for Our Lives is, of course, a youth-based organization formed by the survivors of another school shooting in Parkland, Florida. In Parkland, that is now the 3rd deadliest school shooting in America, behind Newtown and most recently Uvalde. Those students marched 6 weeks after the event, demanding action in Washington. Today's youth leaders are doing it again. And while we stand here for another time, for another tragedy, which is put on to our youth, right? The most vulnerable, our youngest, are the ones bearing the brunt of this uniquely American problem. I'm always inspired by a quote when speaking to the fellow youth by Bobby Kennedy when he gave his Day of Affirmation speech. And while we're demanding change, right, he kind of said it then. You know, each time that a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lots of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. Those tiny ripples of hope can change the world. Well, your actions today, by marching, by sending letters, by demanding change, are sending tiny ripples of change. Now, it may not be at the speed that we would like or what we deserve to protect us all, but those changes are being listened to. Just take for a minute New Jersey, for instance. Look at what we've done at the state level, led primarily by Senator Joe Cryan. You'll hear from Joe at Union. But take, for instance, whether it's banning ghost guns, limiting magazine capacity, instituting red flag laws, those have saved lives in New Jersey. We now need our federal and national model to just take hold everywhere. But Joe has been leading that fight. And I'm sure if you ask him what motivates him, it's probably from hearing from all of you. So each one of you is sending forth that little tiny ripple of hope, and it is making a change. So we thank you all for being here today. We, of course, grieve for the victims, but we let their memory inspire us to make further change. So with that, Commissioner Kolowski, would you step on up? Thank you.
I think that none of us imagined that we would have to get out into the streets and demand a basic right that our children would be able to go to school and learn and be safe. It's just, it's so hard to accept that this is what we have come to in the United States of America, that children continually get killed in their classrooms. And I think that all of us are here because we are saying that it has to stop, and we are all going to keep marching, keep doing everything that we possibly can, work with all of our allies, with our representatives here in Springfield and in Union and at the county level and the state and the federal level. We are going to keep doing what has to be done until the laws are passed so that this will stop. So I just want to thank you again for being here. I'm sorry that we have to be here, but your Union County commissioners are committed to fighting on this, as all of us are committed to fighting to make sure that our children and all of us are safe. So we have someone here who is fighting very hard down in Washington and has been, and he has to get reelected in the 7th District. Yes. You know who I mean, Congressman Tom Malinowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you, everybody. So I'm going to start this by saying the opposite of what I usually say when I give a speech. I'm going to say I am not happy to be here with you today. I'm pissed off that we have to keep on doing this. And I know that probably a lot of you feel that way as well. There are people in this audience who have been to these marches many, many times before. And there are kids who are probably here the first time, and we don't want to have them do this 5 or 10 or 20 more times before we get change. But despite that, I thank you for being here. I thank you for not being too tired to come out at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning to do what has to be done to keep our kids safe. I thank you for not losing hope. I thank you for having the patience to do what we have to do in America to make change. And that is to understand that, yes, you have to work hard year after year after year, because unfortunately that is how politics works sometimes. When the news came of the shooting in Uvalde, in the wake of the horrible massacre in Buffalo, it's hard for me to describe how I felt. I'm a politician. I'm supposed to be good with words, but it's very hard for me to express it. I will tell you, I thought about my own daughter, who has grown up now, but I thought about all those days, all those years when I was taking her to school and thinking about what it would have felt like if I'd had to think every single time I dropped her off for school that this might be the last time I saw her. Something that I know so many parents in America have to think about every single day today, even if the chances of one of these school shootings is so low. Just the fact that we have to think about it is terrorizing moms and dads and kids all across this country. But we know what needs to be done because we've done most of it in the state of New Jersey. Think about this. We are, of all the states in this union, we are one of the top 2 or 3 states in terms of safety in our schools, safety for our kids. We have one of the lowest rates of gun violence fatalities in the United States of America. And why is that? Why is that? Is it because we have less mental health problems in the state of New Jersey? No. Is it because we have less crime in the state of New Jersey? No. Is it because we have kids not playing video games in the state of New Jersey? Is there less evil in the state of New Jersey? I'm sorry to say no, right? We got all the same problems as all of the other states, all the same challenges that they have, and yet we are much safer because we have strong gun laws. Because we have leaders like Joe Cryan who came to politics from a career in law enforcement who understand what it takes to keep us safe. And so what we have to do is to take what we have learned in the state of New Jersey and apply it to the country as a whole, for the sake of our fellow Americans living everywhere else, and also for our own sakes, because as any of these police officers will tell you, almost every single gun that is used in a crime of violence in New Jersey comes from one of these other states where they have much weaker gun laws. So, what have we done? In the House of Representatives, and this is my job. You know, when Uvalde happened, I mourned for those victims. I prayed for their families, but I remembered I have a job that very few Americans have. Just over 500 people in this country have the job that I have. My job is not to mourn. My job is not to pray. My job is to act. And so last week, in the House of Representatives, we tried to act again. We have passed very strong background check laws. I actually don't even call them background check laws. I call them violent history check laws. That's what we're talking about. We're not interested in your financial history. We're not interested in your shoe size. We are only interested in whether you can safely own a weapon in this country. We passed that. We're gonna try our very best to strengthen those rules. We passed legislation to ensure that the red flag laws that allow police officers with a court order to take guns away from dangerous people apply to every single state in this union, just like they do in New Jersey. We passed a safe storage law to make sure that people who have kids in their home safely store any weapons that they may own. We passed, this is the simplest thing in the world, we passed a law that says that you gotta be 21 years old if you're gonna buy one of these assault rifles. I think they should be banned altogether, but if you gotta be 21 to buy a pistol, you ought to be 21 to buy an AK-47 or an AR-15. That's just common sense. We passed all of those laws. And we are going to move to do an assault weapons ban as well in the United States House of Representatives. But now here's where I got to mention the P word, and that's politics. A lot of these common sense laws that are supported, you know this, right, by 70, 80, 90% of the American people. The overwhelming majority of gun owners support these laws. And yet they go to the United States Senate, and we get very little progress. 20 years ago, we passed in the Congress a ban on assault rifles, which unfortunately expired after 10 years. It passed in a bipartisan way in 1994. It was championed by President Ronald Reagan, who is the ultimate Republican in this country these last 50 years. And last week, when all we tried to do was raise the age of purchase for those assault rifles from 20 to 21, we only had 10 of my Republican colleagues voting with us. Ronald Reagan was for this 20 years ago, and now we only have 10 left. I'll tell you another depressing story about the politics that we are facing. I've got a colleague in the House, a very conservative Republican member. His name is Chris Jacobs. He comes from the area around Buffalo, New York. You can imagine how he feels about this today. And after that horrible shooting, he got up in front of a press conference and he said, you know what? If they put an assault weapons ban on the floor of the House for a vote, I will vote yes, because I got to do something. I cannot in good conscience just do nothing after something like this happens. That was 2 weeks ago. A week later, he announced he was not running for re-election because the gun industry got to him, because his party said, you're through. That's the politics that we are facing right now. So remember that when it comes time for the election this November. We know who stands where on the gun issue in America today. We know who is willing to act to protect our kids, and we know who would rather lose more kids than lose some vote in a primary. That's the difference right now in our politics. And the problem is, we're all in agreement here. We care about this, but we have not been voting on the basis of this issue. And in America, if you want the power to change, you've got to vote your beliefs. You've got to hold politicians accountable based on what you believe. And if you believe this is the most important thing, and it ought to be, because what is more important than protecting our children, then we've got to make sure that we come out there this November and we vote for people who believe that our kids need to be protected. And I know everyone here is going to vote, if you're 18 or older, right? But whether you're 18 or older, everybody here can go out and get 5 or 10 votes. Everybody here can knock on doors. Everyone here can talk to members of their family and their friends and their coworkers and make sure that they're out there in this midterm election where historically not enough people vote, and remind them that this is important. People ask me, what's it going to take? This gets back to our frustration and our fatigue that we have to march so many times. And I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, but I am going to tell you that it's actually very simple. We can get change. This is a math problem. We can get change if we get 2 more United States senators who are willing to break the filibuster to pass common sense gun legislation. So long as we also have a majority in the House that keeps on passing these bills. And that's our job in the state of New Jersey, because our 2 senators are going to do the right thing. So remember that this November. It is on us. We have the power to make sure that America is no longer the only country in the world where our parents have to worry about not seeing their kids every time they drop them off from school. Are you ready to march for that? Are you ready to organize for that? Are you ready to vote for that? Thank you. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce your superintendent of schools, Ms. Rachel Goldberg.
Thank you all for coming. As a parent and as an educator, I am most proud to stand here because this march was organized by students. So for just a second, can we give a big round of applause to the incredible student leaders? I'd like to thank the township officials that worked together to bring 2 communities together to share this common goal. And there's not a whole lot that I can say that's more valuable than what comes from our students themselves. So I'm proud to introduce the student speakers that you'll be hearing from Springfield Public Schools. Our first is Natalia Kadish. She's a senior and student leader at Jonathan Dayton High School. Our second speaker is Morgan Blair, also a junior at Jonathan Dayton High School. And our final speaker is Ben Wishna, also a junior at Jonathan Dayton High School. Ms. Kadish.
Good morning, everybody. Once again, my name is Natalia Kadish, and I'm a graduating senior at Jonathan Dayton High School. I just want to echo what all of the other speakers have said here today. I don't want to be here. This week, I'll be graduating from Jonathan Dayton on Thursday, and I would rather be out with my friends decorating my cap and gown than be out here talking about why I deserve to live and feel safe in my school. I remember being 8 years old when I went to my uncle's house in Virginia and watched my dad and his brothers shoot discs with ARs as a fun game about their aim and skill. I remember just 4 years ago when I was about 14 years old and my father, a licensed gun owner, took me to the range for the first time. I remember walking into the range blindly with no clue as to where I was supposed to go and letting my dad's soft and gentle hands guide me as I shot my first bullseye. Needless to say, I have experience being around firearms, and I completely understand and can empathize with the arguments by many other gun enthusiasts who fear gun control's impacts on their livelihoods and hobbies. But what I can't say I agree with is the ignorance and lack of sympathy by many members of this community who refuse to acknowledge the true extent of the gun violence epidemic in America. Yes, it's exciting to go to the range and practice, and to do all of these incredible activities. But at the same time, there will never be someone on this planet, not my father, nor my uncles, nor any of their friends, who can convince me that changes to how easily someone can become involved in this sport are necessary. I'm a high school student and soon to be freshman in college. I want to major in computer science and eventually get my Juris Doctorate to become a lawyer and help argue and develop laws surrounding developing technologies. What I don't want to do is use my Juris Doctorate to keep on telling people why all of my peers deserve to have a life and to live to see the future. I have goals. I have dreams. I have things that I'm aspiring for. How do you think I feel knowing that one of my classmates who's just turned 18 can go to some store and get a firearm and bring it to school? I don't know about any of you, and I don't know how any of you feel, but I don't feel safe. I don't feel protected, and I know damn well that the drills and protective measures that my school takes to save my life in the event of an armed intruder are simply not enough. In a real emergency, I'm not going to go hide in a corner and wait for someone to come and kill me. I'm going to run. I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to fight. My fight or flight is going to activate, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself and those around me to survive another day. Regardless of what I do, what my friends do, what my school does, guns are a bigger issue than just being in schools. Guns are being put in the hands of people who lack the maturity and in many cases the sanity to carry them. So as a student who wants to see past the doors of my high school, who wants to graduate, who wants my classmates and peers to graduate as well without the trauma or fear of gun violence, I ask that more conversation about making a change is sparked and that we can come together to make sure those changes happen. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm a junior. I'm a junior at Jonathan Dayton. I was trying to find the right words for this occasion because sadly I've become a little desensitized to this issue. It feels like mass shootings in schools and supermarkets are happening so frequently that is, how do you simply react? So after Buffalo, I wrote a little poem that explains a little bit of how I was feeling at the moment. Bullets have no names. They don't choose who they hit. He goes into a supermarket by the name of Tops in Buffalo, New York. While streaming, he's also killing innocent people, apologizing to people that he didn't mean to kill. He didn't care about the names: Roberta, Margus, Andre, Aaron, Geraldine, Celestine, Hayward, Catherine, Pearl, and Ruth. As a community, we are forced to know these names, remember these names, speak these names. Our communities are dying. We have people that we trust to make laws to protect us. They're simply not doing their job. They're not remembering the names when they're sitting on Capitol Hill, while people have guns and they are looking to kill. As a community, we are grief-stricken by mass shootings that happen in schools and now in public places. We have been grief-stricken since Columbine, then Sandy Hook, then Parkland, and then we have what happened in Uvalde, Texas, as well as Buffalo, New York, in a shopping market. What are we going to do once we leave here? What's going to happen to what we've done here today. Once we march, are we going to be proud of ourselves that we marched and go home and that's it? Or are we going to urge our legislators and senators to make safe gun laws that protect us as the citizens that put them in these positions? We often forget the power we have as citizens. As citizens that put these people in these positions, we are telling them what we want them to do for us. They're only there because we put them there. So we need to remember our power as citizens after these marches. We can't just march and not do anything after. This issue has gotten so serious that during the NBA Finals, which to any sports fan is a really big deal, Steve Kerr took the time out of a press conference. Instead of talking about who's starting the game or injuries or strategies, he took that whole press conference to talk about gun violence. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a coach take time from such a big sporting event to talk about an issue like this. It has reached beyond the citizens. It's gone beyond school leaders and social justice organizers. It's gone beyond that. You have people in entertainment who aren't supposed to care about these things taking time to care about these issues. As I close, I urge all of us to remember why we're here. Remember why we're marching. When we go home, remember what we did today to look for the next step of action to take toward making safer gun laws. I'm only 17. I want to live to be 18. I want to be 21. I want to finish college. I want to get married. There's things I want to do. But without safe gun laws, my life is at risk every single day. Because those kids in Texas, they did not think they were going to die. 3rd and 4th graders about to finish school. Honor roll students. They just finished their awards. They thought they were going to go home and probably get some ice cream for the good job that they did. They thought they were going to go to 5th grade and to 4th grade and then to high school. That's a whole generation that we just lost because we have people that are putting their power and their pride in front of our lives. We remember those from Sandy Hook every year. And Sandy Hook, again, another generation of lives that would have been in high school, that would have seen their prom, that would have graduated. We can't keep saying what generations would have been able to do. Once we start getting safer gun laws, then we'll see them do it. These kids are our future. They keep saying kids are the future. We'll protect the future. If you can protect a national park, and you protect all of these national parks, and you protect animals, endangered species, protect humans, protect our lives. The people from Buffalo, Texas, some were grandparents, some were parents, sisters, brothers, daughters. They have just lost their lives and they have not been able to see a milestone. Some woman was 67. She was about to turn 70. Somebody was 35, probably had kids and missed out on a graduation, a prom, first day of school. We are losing people because of people's pride and their greed for power. We need to end this now. This needs to be the last march that we all come to. This needs to be the last time that we're all gathered here today because we're grief-stricken and we're upset about what our legislators are not doing. This needs to be the last time. How do we make it the last time? We vote. We make sure that our legislators know what we want. We reach out to senators, even if it's not from our own state. Because at this point, we have to reach out to everyone. We go on social media and we utilize it the right way. We go to letter writing campaigns. We send emails. If we can, go to town halls to voice our opinions, to make sure that this is the last march that we ever come to regarding gun laws. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ben Wishna, and I'm a junior at Jonathan Dayton High School. But first, I'd like to thank March for Our Lives, Jonathan Dayton High School, Union High School, Mayor Kaiser, Superintendent Goldberg, Congressman Malinowski, and everyone else who took time out of their weekend to attend. It's with great misfortune that we have to be here today. But that is our patriotic duty as Americans, to exercise our freedom to assemble. We have a gun violence problem in the United States. No other developed country, or any country for that matter, has this issue except for the United States. The problem is automatic, semi-automatic, and assault weapons. Weapons designed with the intent to take the lives of fellow humans. The 19 innocent children in Uvalde, Texas, and 2 innocent teachers were not protected. And what do they tell us? Problem's not guns. Problem is doors, violent video games, social media, or single parents. Nope, it's the guns. When lawmakers accuse people calling this out of politicizing mass shootings, that's their way of telling us they know they're wrong. The very same people who claim to be pro-life refuse to protect actual life. The very same people who throw literal temper tantrums on national television, proclaiming our teachers are indoctrinating our children with wokeness, also want to put weapons of war in the hands of those very people. So I ask, which is it? Are teachers groomers who want to indoctrinate children, or are they responsible for protecting the school with weapons? The answer is neither. They're educators responsible for shaping kids' futures and growing young minds. We are tired of the hypocrisy, because this isn't politics, this is people's lives. And up to 90% of Americans, Asian, Black, Hispanic, white, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, support some form of gun control, while the NRA buys out 50% of our representatives and we can't get a thing done. We're incredibly lucky to live in a state with these strict gun laws and where mass shootings are infrequent. But not everybody is so lucky, which is why we march. I call on the Senate to pass the Protecting Our Kids Act and get this onto President Joe Biden's desk now. I thank you all for listening, and let's march!
Isn't that great? Nothing for me that 2 Tylenol couldn't take care of, so I was all ready this morning. Thank you for joining us this morning as we stand together against gun violence. Today is June 11th, and we are still 3 weeks away from the year's halfway point. And yet, we have had more than 200 mass shootings and 27 school shootings with injuries
and/or deaths. I share with you this sombering statistic to reinforce the importance of this march and everything else we can do to bring awareness and action to this epidemic facing our nation. Gun violence is affecting every social economic level, every type of community, every age. Gun violence is turning regular, everyday routines that we all know, such as grocery shopping, school drop-offs, and worship, into tragic events. Gun violence is robbing our sense of security, dividing our country, leading us to wonder, when will enough be enough? Our message and ask for this march is simple. No longer will we, or should we, tolerate gun violence and feel unsafe in our everyday routine. Regardless of what political party you stand for, we must stand together against gun violence. It's unconscionable that not a single week in 2022 has passed without at least 4 mass shootings with over 700 children and teens killed. As politicians, we must act and work on legislation that helps keep guns out of the hands of individuals that are hell-bent on killing others. As parents, we must fight for the safety of our children and our future and demand action, funding, and plans to make schools the true havens they are meant to be. And to my students out here, as students, I encourage you to continue to advocate for a better future. Keep rallying, Keep rallying for laws that help stop gun violence. Demand tougher gun regulations so that guns don't end up in the wrong hands. And ask for more programs that help mentally unstable individuals deal with issues before they harm themselves and others with guns. American author Ezra Klein once said, and I quote, "Only with gun violence do we respond to repeated tragedies by saying that mourning is acceptable, but discussing how to prevent more tragedies is not. But that's unacceptable. As others have observed, talking about how to stop a mass shooting in the aftermath of a string of mass shootings isn't too soon. It's much too late," end quote. Singularly, we cannot win this battle. It will take a movement. The likes of the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage movement both took decades, but progress was made because people like each and every one of you, along with us up here, stood up for what is right and demanded action. I want you to give yourselves a round of applause for joining us today. Activist and Florida school shooting survivor David Hogg has stated, quote, "So as American citizens, unite and stand up in the face of division, not any political agenda, but for the lives of millions of school children. We are not going away. This time will be different," end quote. And now if you would please join me for a moment of silence, reflection, and respect in honor of those that have passed due to gun violence. Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to invite our first assistant Union County prosecutor for some remarks, Mr. James Tansey.
Good morning. I'm proud to be here. I was sitting there during the moment of silence, and it was poignant to me that the only voice I could hear was a child counting over there. And I really think that says it all almost. You know, that kid should be allowed to keep counting for years and years to come.
Yes.
And my job and the job of the Union County Prosecutor's Office is to enforce the gun laws that are on the books. That's our job. And we take it very seriously. And, you know, I usually would start a speech with a joke about Senator crying, but this is no joking matter. And I would like to thank Joe because I've watched him draft legislation to stop this insanity, to stop this craziness. And I'm not political. I'm not a political guy. I'm just not. It's got nothing, like Manny said, it's got nothing to do with politics. It's got everything to do with common sense. You know, it's a common sense thing. And it's hard to sit back and watch it. But what I want to say to the students is, every one of these kids, because the shooters in these incidents, in Uvalde and the other ones, they're kids. They're kids. And the majority of them, after we go back and investigate the jobs, have given an indication on a Facebook page or on a Instagram or somewhere of what their intent was. And it's you guys. It's not us old people. I'm an old man. I'm not interacting with them. I don't know what they're putting on their social media. But when you guys see it, you gotta say something. You're not a snitch. You're not a rat. You're a lifesaver. You're saving lives. If you see a kid who's troubled, and if they're making statements that even make you say, wow, that's a little strange, tell us. Tell us. Tell us so that we can grab that kid before he does something tragic, before he hurts somebody. Because that's what's got to happen. We got to start helping these guys, these kids, before they do something. Praying after, that's all great. That's all great. But looking back after there's, you know, people not going to be able to count anymore. It's just got to stop. And so we need your help. For us to do it as a law enforcement agency, we need your help. When you see a kid, either on social media or in the school or in your private encounters, who you're not bothering us. Trust me, you are not bothering us. Let us know. Let your parents know. Let somebody know, because you could be saving a life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, I'd like to call up Assemblywoman Quijano for a few remarks.
Good morning. First, I want to thank the organizers. An event like this takes hours, lots of phone calls, lots of follow-up. And because of their work, it makes it a success that it is. Look around. Look and see who's your neighbor, who's here, who has marched, and who has come to lend their support. We're gathered here for a very important reason, and that is to say enough is enough. We've had enough of living in fear as we attend services at our houses of worship or purchase food at a grocery store. We've had enough of sending our children off to school and worrying that they may not return. Years ago, when Sandy Hook shooting occurred in 2012, I thought that was enough. Then we had Parkland shooting in 2018, and I thought that was enough. Some individuals have suggested that more guns is the answer, but we know that's not true. The truth is we must act and pass common sense gun safety laws now. In 2021, there was a total of 692 mass shootings. Unfortunately, this year, we may reach that number again unless enough is enough. Each person has value, has a life, family. Each shooting is tragic. Each shooting is heartbreaking, and each shooting should have been the last. Quite a few things, but I'll highlight a few. Requires firearms safety training, raising the minimum age to purchase long guns from 18 to 21, promoting micro-stamping technology, banning .50 caliber firearms, registering out-of-state, well, when out-of-state individuals move in-state, registering their firearms, holding gun manufacturers liable for the harm that they cause. These measures, when combined with the past measures we have implemented, will continue to make New Jersey an example to the rest of the nation of what it means to pass common sense gun laws. Thank you. I continue to be inspired by the young faces I see in the crowd today. Never stop using your voice to change this world for the better. You can count on me to continue to advocate for gun reform. The time for discussion has long passed. The time for action is now.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. I'd like to welcome State Senator Joseph Cryan to the podium for some remarks.
Morning, everybody. How was the walk? All right, we feel good? We should feel good. We're out today, we're speaking, we're using our voice. It's okay to feel good, even in this terrible, terrible moment that we're in. I want to take a moment and thank Mayor Figueredo, the governing body of the Township of Union. I want to thank Mayor Kaiser and the governing body of the Township of Springfield for bringing us together today. And most importantly, I want to thank each and every one of you for making today happen. Today was important. But it was important for a variety of reasons, and one of which I just want to take a moment and ask you to think about something. I just want you to, for a second, to think about a special moment in your life. Just take a moment. Now, I don't know what you thought of, but based on your age, you might have thought about the birth of your first child, maybe your wedding day. For some of you in here, maybe the day you graduated, 8th grade graduation. For my grandson, I suspect, who's 5 years old, his graduation from kindergarten yesterday. If you were 9, I promise you that one of the things you thought about was when you turned 10, that you became double digits. Everybody remember double digits? This is Anne-Marie Jo Garza. She was 10. Most of the victims of Uvalde were double digits. They were 10. They never got a chance to be 11. Never even got a chance to change the 0 to 1. Think about that. Those moments aren't supposed to be like that. That young lady who counted so poignantly while we had our moment, she counted past 10. We're supposed to be better. We're supposed to do better. And this, as we marched on today, we agree upon, has to stop. And my colleague, Nick Chiano, mentioned it, but I do want you to think about, if you started in the talk, you heard Congressman Malinowski talk about the federal response to gun legislation. And Annette mentioned some of the things that happened here in New Jersey. I am the author of the ghost gun bill that eliminates ghost guns and makes them illegal in the state of New Jersey. Annette mentioned the package, but I want you to just take a moment because we are from all over. Hopefully you had a chance to talk to people today. Not everybody here is just from the two towns. Folks came from all over, and we are honored by that today. Yeah, you can give that a nice round of applause. People came from miles away. But in that gun package, or the package of bills that Annette mentioned, are important. But yet we are having trouble in New Jersey's legislature passing those bills. And the question I have for each one of my colleagues is this: when the moment came, did you do all you can do? No one thinks we can stop everything. 83% of the weapons used in violent crimes in the state of New Jersey come from out of state. Think about that. 83%. I can tell you that because as an undersheriff and a sheriff, I watch people, sadly, bleed out from being shot. I watch people die. And as poignant as that is, I can tell you what stays with you are the screams from family members that hear and understand that it's their family member, their son, their brother, their daughter, whose life is no longer there. Whether they're 10, whether they're 18, or whether they're adults. So my ask of you is this. I'm going to mention a little bit. Think about what we want to do here in New Jersey. We want to make it so that you have to be 21 years old to buy a rifle. That's all we want. 21. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't have a drink. You can't rent a car. All we want you to do is be 21. By the way, we also would like you to show that you have some training for it, so you can handle that weapon, right? Because one of those milestones is when you turn 17, you have to take a driver's license test. You have to prove you can be able to handle a vehicle. How about that we make sure you can handle a weapon? If you come to the state of New Jersey from another state and you own weapons, all we ask is that you register them with our state. Tom Malinowski mentioned it in Springfield. We don't want to know your foot size. We don't want to know your weight. We just want to know you have weapons, because weapons kill. That's what they do. Now, there's a whole bunch of others. It's time to sue the gun companies when this violence happens. It is past time to do that. It is time to eliminate .50 caliber ammunition in the state of New Jersey. There's so much more we can do, but we can do it together. Because today, you and I, we walk the walk. But we have a little more to do. We've got to talk the talk. And how do we do that? Well, no matter where you came from, I need to ask you to do something when you leave here. Today, Monday, contact your legislator. Contact the senator who represents you and tell them you want them to vote for the gun violence package to protect our children in the future for the state of New Jersey. She was 10. She was a Girl Scout. The Girl Scouts gave her, I think it's called the Bronze Star Award, after she died, because she was such a devoted Girl Scout. She got a cell phone for her 10th birthday because she wanted a cell phone. She used that cell phone to call for help during that far too long shooting. That's what 10-year-olds can do. and no one came. We can't change this. We can pray for her and her friends and her family. By the way, her friend yesterday, 11 years old, who visited the memorial, went into cardiac arrest from the shock. Had to be rushed to the hospital. Because it affects more than just this promise lost, this angel who is no longer here. It affects families, it affects communities, it affects all of us. And hopefully today, with your voice, we become one step closer, one step in this walk, one step closer to ending gun violence in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. I think you hit home as I looked at all of your faces and mine. It's just devastating. So, before I get emotional, because it's tough, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Scott Taylor, Superintendent of Union Schools, who will introduce two of our student speakers, Victoria Magarino and Faith Cardillo.
So I was a vice principal when Columbine happened, and I remember my immediate reaction in terms of emotions was a combination of things. I was anxious. As a vice principal, of course, I was on the front lines of trying to protect kids and faculty. I was scared, and I was sad, because that had been the first time that we saw, in my generation, a mass school shooting. But recently, because I've been through this quite a bit, I've gotten angry. I'm sick and tired of walking through school halls and knowing that my teachers, support staff, and my fellow leaders, some of whom are here, like Maureen Corbett on my left, have to be thinking, on one hand, that there might be somebody with an assault rifle walking down the hall, but on the other hand, trying to teach their kids. I'm sick and tired of kids having to do lockdown drills. Can you imagine what it's like when you're 6 years old and you're told you have to cower in a corner as a drill that you do almost on a monthly basis? I mean, I was around when we had to get under tables to protect from the nuclear holocaust, which, by the way, we all know was ridiculous, because nothing could have protected us from that. This is a whole other level. Just so you know, parents, guardians, and folks who don't have kids yet, here's what students do when they drill for an active shooter scenario. Something rings, either a bell or an intercom call. Everybody has to immediately, and by the way, this is supposed to be spontaneous, so kids are being like innately trained how to do this. They have to run, go, cower in a corner, turn the lights off, shut the shades, make sure that the door is locked. Meanwhile, the teacher is scrambling around to do all of this, and oftentimes do not know that it's a drill. And then they wait 5 minutes. And sometimes, as some schools will do, local law enforcement will practice what they would do, and they'll come around and they'll knock on doors. That's some scary stuff. You think we have mental health problems? What are we doing to kids while they have to drill to this extent? I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm also sick and tired of knowing that my students of color, my black and brown students, my students who are LGBTQ, all of them have to go out in the world and be fearful for their life, because as we know from Orlando and from Buffalo, targets of this violence are generally those who are not quite as enfranchised as the rest of our population. So with that, before I introduce Tori and Faith, I'm putting a call out to my fellow superintendents. Let your students be active. Organize them. Organize them. When I was in Highland Park, I tried to do that with the Black Lives Matter movement. We've got to do it now with gun violence, as well as to protect our students of color and our LGBTQ students. Superintendents, work with your students. Principals, work with your students. Collaborate with them to be active, because Faith and Tori are those activists. So let me tell you just very quickly about who you're going to hear from. Tori is going to be our first speaker. She happens to be a leader on my superintendent student cabinet, a very vocal individual, very articulate. Faith with your hand. Faith actually started the first Union High School chapter of My School Votes. These are activists. So with that, I want to invite Tori to the mic.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to preface this by saying that change can be a good thing. Change allows us to take steps forward in life. It allows us to take a step back and recognize when something has failed, has changed, or needs different circumstances. When I think about gun violence in the United States, I think, why hasn't anything changed? Why are we trying a new method? Why are we learning from our mistakes? How many people have to get hurt, have to die, and have to live in fear for something to change, for someone to take action? In the United States, as of yesterday, June 10th, there have been 255 mass shootings. This means that there have been more mass shootings than days in 2022 so far. This also means that many individuals have to go through the day with higher levels of anxiety, living in fear, scared that one day they will be caught in the next one. In comparison to previous years, from 2019 to 2020, the total number of mass shootings in which at least 4 people are shot, excluding the shooter, rose from 417 to 610. In 2021, that number increased to 692. I asked a few of my peers to anonymously answer one question: how does gun violence in the United States affect you? One peer responded with, I avoided the news when it came to shootings because how I knew each shooting would be one more shooting closer to us. It does not have to be this way. Gun violence should not be the new normal. Practicing lockdowns, finding new ways to barrier down doors, looking for the best place to hide at school should not be the normal, and it's up to us to make a change. My mother, I love her, she's a teacher, and every day I fear that she's not gonna come back home. My little brother, he attends Kiwami. I'm scared the same thing will happen to him. And every day when he enters the door from his walk back home, I'm just so happy that he lived to see another day. Because this is the reality we're facing now. Never be afraid to speak up. Never be afraid to vote. Never be afraid to voice your concerns. This is how we progress forward. By marching today, you have united your community and spoke up against gun violence. Thank you for coming out today and for using your voice on behalf of all those who no longer can as a result of gun violence. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come out and protest with us. I'm sorry you had to. It shouldn't take thousands of children getting killed in school in order for change to happen in this country. I'm sorry to all the students here today who have to wonder where the best hiding places are in classrooms. I'm sorry to teachers who are asked to go above and beyond for students and are now tasked with saving lives from an active shooter. But I am not sorry for using my voice to educate and to make change. I am not sorry for demanding something to be done before another child is killed in a classroom. I am not sorry for working day and night to register voters and to make the world a better place. I marched in Newark in 2018, and I am proud to march here again in 2022. However, I have a few questions for all of you today. How many more? How many more shootings? How many more deaths? How many more families have to be torn apart before something is done? How many more children have to enter classrooms and find the best hiding spot before saying hello to their teacher? How many more lockdowns or shelter-in-places do we have to do wondering if it's real this time? How many more children have to think, am I next? I know I'm not the only one wanting answers met with action. I know that there are thousands, if not millions, of people asking these same questions. Thoughts and prayers will never be enough until action is taken. The midterm elections are upon us. It is on us to vote. I personally can't vote myself, but neither can the victims of countless shootings this country has had. I'm not old enough, but I will have the opportunity to next year. But the Sandy Hook children can't vote. The children in Uvalde can't vote. The children in Columbine, in Parkland, and thousands of others cannot vote. They were in school, and they were taken from us. Enough is enough. Words must be turned into action. Take the pain and anger we all feel right now and bring it to the polls this November. It is on us. We need to vote out officials who love guns more than children. We need to vote out politicians who think thoughts and prayers are enough. We need to live in a world where we aren't afraid of going to school because we may not make it home. We need to live in a world where our parents don't have to identify us by a heart drawn on our sneakers. We need to live in a country where weapons of war aren't sold to teenagers over the counter. We need to live in a country where politicians care more about children after they are born rather than before. We need to vote for politicians who believe that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to make sure he doesn't have the gun in the first place. And above all, we need to vote for change. Thank you.
Can't say it much better than our students, our young ones, that really, how about a nice round of applause for Tori and Faith. And I'd like to ask both of you to come stand next to me. Faith, Tori, I know they're busy saying hello to a few people. Would you come and stand next to me, Tori and Faith? Gloria, let them go. What? You decide. This is what it's about, everyone. It's not about me. It's not about the dignitaries. These are the dignitaries because these are our future. How about a nice round of applause for these two ladies right here? In closing, I want to leave you with another quote from David Hogg. Quote, "Now is the time to come together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as Americans. Americans of the same flesh and blood that care about one thing, and one thing only, and that's the future of this country and the children that are going to lead it." You can hear me. It almost lasted. I hope you can hear me. I'm going to be loud. On behalf of Union Township and the Township of Springfield, I want to thank our student speaker. I want to thank Mayor Kaiser right back here. I want to thank County Commissioner Betty Jane Kowalski for joining us, Assemblywoman Quijano, Senator Cryan, Congressman Malinowski joined us back over in Springfield, and most of all, you, our community, for joining us today and standing against gun violence, because we all know enough is enough. We cannot continue to fail these children. They have spoken, and they are right. Absolutely. We just have to stop talking about change and take action. So let's continue to work together to keep our children, our communities safe. Thank you all for coming. Just a few acknowledgments. I want to, as you leave this field, grab some water, some snacks that were donated by some of our local businesses, Cozy Corner and Joe's Place. And we didn't get rain, but there were ponchos here ready to go for you that were donated by Chiaffi's Italian Restaurant. So I thank them for their donations. If you need transportation back to Springfield, buses will be right outside those fences. Thank you all for coming, and let's act now. Thank you.